Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Authors on Mission podcast, where we explore the strategies and insights of experts who are making a difference through their words and their actions. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, the Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission, and today we're joined by a remarkable leader who turned her immigrant story into a mission of empowerment. Monique de Maio is the founder of On Demand CMO and author of The 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love. From interpreting for her family at age 5 to become a successful marketing film and creating a community affectionately known as Monique's Mafia, she embodies the power of international choices and authentic leadership. Monique's practical approach to helping women design lives they love has earned her book widespread acclaim and built a devoted community of leaders. And today we're going to explore her journey, her 7 secrets, and the micro moments that can transform a life within the context of her book. So without further ado, welcome Monique to our show.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's so nice to be here.
It's great to welcome you on. I'm excited to learn all about your experiences, your journey, and most importantly, Monique's Mafia, which I love that name. So perhaps I usually like to start a little bit about learning about who you are. If you can give us a little bit of explanation and what led you to write your book. And if you can weave in a little bit about that Mafia story in there, I think I'd love to know about it.
All right, cool. Well, you did do a great job introducing where I came from. So I'm from a long line of immigrants who have left their countries for different reasons and economic opportunities and, not great situations or whatever. So I came to the United States at the age of 5, not speaking the language. And so at a very young age, I was put in a position to be the interpreter and the advocate for my family while they were learning the language. And I learned it much quicker, as most kids do. And so I like to say that the irony and the coincidence of me being in communications and marketing and helping others and companies tell their stories because they cannot started for me at the age of 5, where I was actually communicating and telling stories for those who couldn't do it at the time as well. So I feel like marketing and communications picked me. I didn't pick it.
That's how the best things go, right? You don't intend to get into something, but then life happens and you find out that it's what you were meant to do.
Yeah. So to answer your other question, the reason I wrote this book is that in my generation, we didn't really do a great job of having mentors. We didn't have mentors, and women were not necessarily pro-women. It was when there was a woman in the executive room or board or team, there wasn't going to be another one. So you really were competing with one another in addition to the men. So I read a lot of books on management and time management and leadership and being a parent. And other than, What to Expect When You're Expecting was written by men. So the books were written from a very different perspective, a very different lens. And I didn't think that it wasn't simple. I read like 300 pages to get 2-page takeaway. And I was like, why can't somebody simplify that? And I will tell you, as a Y certified coach now, my superpower is I'm a contribute person. So I like to contribute to other people. Can't help myself. And the way I go about doing that is that I simplify things so that you can trust that there is a solution that makes sense for you. And that is exactly my book. It's very pragmatic. It interviews 11 other women, other leaders that tell their stories in 7 key areas of life: voice, choice, time, job, internal narratives, or what we like to refer to as the little voice inside your head, external narrative, the story that people tell about you, and then your environment. So those are the 7 sort of areas that I tackle at a very pragmatic, very matter of fact, what can you do? Small little changes make big, big impact.
I love that you were able to kind of take these complex concepts and really just push them into something so easy to deliver, almost like a snack size piece of.
Yes, it's like 8 snack sizes. There's the 7 secrets and then implementation, and then here's your book. There you go. And this story of the women who support those stories and that perspective. So, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and even more so, what I noticed when I was looking through your book is that each of these stories also come with practical exercises too, which I noticed it really helps readers move from, understanding and hearing your concepts, but also implementing them. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Very, very good. Thank you for noticing that, and thank you for calling that out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, I like to notice these things about the books as well. All of our listeners are aspiring authors. They're people who are thinking about writing a book or might have a book out there. So it's always good to think about these elements that really help lead to the success of your book, that's one of the reasons. So, kind of branching off of that, I was wondering if you'd like to explain a little bit more about that, about the process of writing your book, right? I mean, what made you choose the specific stories you did, the specific exercises? What was the planning process like for that?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I was going to write a book on marketing, and one of my good friends, Kathy, who's very, very matter of fact, she told, well, I won't use the explicatives, but she basically said, "Why are you going to write another effing book on marketing when you're getting bored just telling me the story about your book on marketing? Why don't you just tell the story of your life?" And I said, "Nobody wants to know about my life." And she said, "You're wrong." And she said, "Let me tell you why you're wrong. Because you are a very, so the businesswoman, successful business with being able to be very present and very much, no, I want to say hands-on because I don't want to make myself sound like a helicopter mom. I wasn't, but I was very much a mom when I was a mom, right? My kids are now 24 and 28, so they're not home anymore. They're launched. They're living in Manhattan. They're off payroll. They're well adjusted and contributing, tax-paying individuals in our society. But during that part, it's an opportunity to pay it forward, right? So the idea came to me as, oh, and she said, the other thing she said is that you're very, very clear about your health, wellness, and well-being and fitness, which is a big part of my life. So she said, most women struggle with one of those 3 sort of areas, and you have seemed to figure it out. Why don't you tell people how you do it? And that's what was the impetus for the book. So my husband and I do a thing that we call the L3. This is a long answer to a very short question, but I'll explain to you how I wrote the book. So the L3 is live like a local. Every year we pick, because we can work from anywhere. We have a consulting business. He's my business partner and life partner of 35 years. And we picked Paris, which is where I was born. And during the time that you guys were sleeping, because we were 6 hours ahead, I wrote all of my thoughts down and all of the secrets I thought I could possibly muster over the course of my life. And then I started organizing it into a book. And those 6 weeks that we lived there created the foundation for the book. Because you know what? When I was able to step away and get out of my environment, which I highly recommend to people, new thoughts occur to you. Your creativity goes up. Your thought processes differ. That's why I love to travel, because it just allows me to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as somebody who loves to travel as well, I've been to a bunch of different places as well, and I know what it's like to just kind of set up your computer at a new location. It really just opens your minds to new thoughts, and that you were able to just dump out all of your thoughts and put them onto paper at once and organize later. It's a great strategy, taking advantage of the inspirational atmosphere that you're around.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. I would just go to the park and just sit there and watch people and watch birds and watch animals and just be like, this is so great. Why am I happy right now? Like, what's lighting me up right now? What is going on? And if I did this more often, how cool would that be? And that's when we decided, we named it, because we're crazy marketing people. And we've been solid about doing it for the last 4 or 5 years now.
I mean, it's an excellent strategy that, I think anybody listening to this today should definitely embody, even if you're unable to go travel somewhere abroad, perhaps even just going to your local park or coffee shop, just getting a change of scenery. That's an amazing, amazing thing to try to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially if you're just like stuck in one room trying to type all the time, maybe there's not even a lot of influence. I mean, I get what you mean. You need a little bit of freshness to get that inspiration out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, absolutely. We
nice.
call it a change of attitude and latitude.
I like it. And I like the way that you and your husband just have these terms for all these
I
different
know, right? These
um,
crazy marketing people.
well, I mean, hey, that's the best type of person, right? The crazy ones. Um, and so kind of branching off of that and transitioning a little bit into the content of your book, obviously you have a lot of terms between what you and your husband do for learning. So therefore, I'm sure you also have a lot of terms and techniques that you have presented in your book. For example, micro moments is one of them. Perhaps you'd like to share a little bit more about these micro moments and any other strategies implemented in your book that people today might be able to apply to their own lives. I know this may be a broad question, but we just
Yeah, no,
was
listen.
there. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you for picking up on that. You're such a good interviewer. Micro moments for me is that we have choice all day long. We have choices every day, all day, every month, every, and they compound. And my husband calls compounded interest the seventh wonder of the world. And it is true because the decisions you make today will impact the life that you lead tomorrow. And those choices could be small, like do I pick up the donut or do I pick up the fruit at the meeting? Do I, sign my son or daughter up for another sport because his best friend is? Or do I marry this person? They could be small, medium, or large choices, but they have impact down the road. And the micro moments for me were like, what did I decide to do in the moment? And one of the stories I tell about myself is that I was bullied quite regularly when I came here. And in third grade, the class bully decided to punch me in the face. Now, why did he choose to punch me in the face? Well, because I had the audacity to have a black friend and another friend who lived in a trailer park. And apparently that didn't go over well with the third grader. So I'm sure he learned that behavior from his parents, but he had it. And so he didn't like my friends and therefore he didn't like me. And he decided that particular day to punch me in the face. Well, my reaction in that moment was to get up off the floor and punch him back. The implications and the long-term result of that decision in the moment was that I was no longer bullied. My classmates had a hell of a lot of respect for me all of a sudden. And that story about myself stopped. I was, fully able to take care of myself, and I was no longer a target, and I was also no longer a victim. So I became a different human in that particular moment in time. Another example of a micro moment is when my boss decided to be a complete blank, right? Well, 4-letter word, pick one. And I chose not to deal with that anymore. I said, you know what? I would rather be out on my own, take a huge risk, take a flyer, than to put up with a sexist, discriminatory, misogynistic corporate culture and be the victim of that. I'm not doing that. I'm not. So that moment in time was the moment when I said, I'm out of here. That was a micro moment that led to a macro outcome. And then other things like, we always decided to live well below our means, meaning that if the bank literally approved us for a home that would be $200,000 more than what we ended up buying, well, we did that on purpose. We did it on purpose because I wanted to be able to say no to somebody that wasn't treating me right. I wanted our family to not be in debt. I wanted my kids to go to school without debt. I wanted to have freedom of choice and voice and power. I didn't want to be beholden to anyone. And so the only way you do that is you give yourself options. The only way you give yourself options is you make micro decisions in the moment that allow you to do that later on.
Understood. Yeah, thank you for giving us that, in-depth explanation because everybody can relate to that sort of thing, like what you choose to do in the moment kind of implications down the line that you might not be aware of, but then, domino effect, it all comes into play at one point or another. And I'm sure for you, many of these micro moments is what led to you creating those 7 specific secrets that are the essential elements of creating a life that you love. Am I correct in guessing that,
Totally.
that's probably what led to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I broke them down and you're dead on right. You've got it.
Good, yeah. So perhaps you could give us a little bit more information about that. Like how did you decide out of all the secrets in the world. Like these specific 7 ones are the ones that we should be focusing on and learning about and applying to our own lives. What led you to that decision?
So women have a tendency to do the following things: put themselves last, people please, underestimate their worth, be very, very hard on themselves, talk to themselves very, very rudely, if you will, believe other people's nonsense about themselves, and underestimate the power of their environment. So I reverse engineered our tendencies and my own weaknesses going through my 20s and 30s and 40s. And I said, okay, so if we do just a few things in these areas, we are kind to ourselves. We don't believe others' stories about ourselves. We surround ourselves with things that give us joy. We manage our time more intentionally, and we give ourselves options and choices. And we show up joyful and fun and energetic and positive. How do we do that? Well, I know how we don't do it. And so I give examples of what we could think about doing, what works for me, what has worked for other women, and what their takeaways have been. And I've just felt like that was the most simplistic way of approaching like an intentional life. So I think the what I wanted to dispel was that you have no choice in your life, that you're just a boat and you go down the river and the river has an energy and it takes you. You don't have to be on the river. If you don't like where the river is going, don't get in the water. You know?
Yeah.
So that was how it happened.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I love that metaphor too, like not to get in the river unless you know where it's going, right? But I guess in theory, you could kind of steer yourself one way or another.
There you go. Right. Exactly. Exactly. You don't like the south side of the thing, go to the east side, you go to the west side. And the thing is that you have choice and you can direct it. I'm not suggesting that you can control. That's different. But you certainly can show up with intention and you certainly can plan. And my favorite line, and what I sign every single book with, every book that I sign for people says, remember, anything is possible with intention, planning, and action. And I underline action, of course. Love and kisses, Monique. But it's true.
I love that signature, of course, and it's always good to have a little refrain people can look out for at the end of things. I get it. I get it. And I can see how just anybody who picks up your book is tremendously impacted by what you say and probably implements it into their own lives. I guess my next question, kind of branching off of that, is you probably receive a lot of feedback from people. They've tried to implement your strategies into their own lives. I'm wondering, would you like to share perhaps one case that resonates with you most when you think about the impact you've made because you've had this book out there now?
Oh, it's so funny. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. I have to tell you, I didn't anticipate this. Yes. So I'm doing a lot of speaking, and this is really my passion, and my call to action on anybody listening is I want to speak to larger groups of women. I know, and men and supporters and advocates and all that, but my big passion is speaking to all of the secrets in a way that leaves people excited and like really ready to go. So I'm loving the speaking. That came out of the book. What I didn't anticipate was that I started doing a series of women's retreats. We're on our second one now. And the impact that the 14 women in that retreat have experienced has blown my mind. And they were so adamant about staying connected and staying in their sisterhood and in their community that we created an online community for my retreat women, and then are expanding it as we do more and more retreats and as I coach more and more women. And I'll get to that in a second, I'm sure. But so that was a happy accident, the retreat stuff. I mean, it's not something that I quote unquote make money at. It's something that gives me tremendous satisfaction and joy. So that was a happy accident. And I've had women, so out of the retreat, we had 2 change jobs. We had one give her husband an ultimatum. We had another one sign up for Toastmasters and like decide that she really got joy out of presenting and wasn't going to come for her job. And she got clarity around that. She had another one decide to write a book and commit to it. We had so many breakthroughs after those 3 days that it was just, and it was literally the foundational, content that I use for the retreat is an offshoot of what I talk about in the book. So it was a natural evolution, and it made me so happy.
I'm really glad you shared that with us. I wouldn't have imagined that, writing this book would lead to something like a retreat, for example.
So
But
crazy.
yeah, and what really stood out to me there is that the women who went on your retreat, what they were struggling with was one range to the other side of the ballpark, right? I mean, you had people giving their husbands ultimatums or changing their careers or writing books. The audience is so widespread, so that's just something expertly you did in your book that really had an impact.
Thank you. I had the age range at the retreat was 27 to 73. So it really was all over the life stages. But as I like to say, we have more that unites us than separates us. And as women, we all face the same types of things. So even the conversations among the women, right? It became a safe space to process stuff that you wouldn't say necessarily even to your best friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's people that are new, but everybody has the same vision and goals in mind and have already embodied the 7 secrets, for example, or the other strategies so everyone's on the same mindset and just helping each other, which is something that we don't usually get these days, right?
I know. It's so nice. Yeah. And so out of the podcast, it's funny, out of the podcast, I was interviewing a woman and it was literally 2 weeks before the retreat. And she was like, I got to go on your retreat. It's like, there's one spot left.
Yeah, awesome.
And so it was really fun. So that was the retreat and the book and the podcast and the speaking all kind of feed off each other. And the Monique's Mafia, by the way, to answer your question previously, was their creation. They said, one of the women said, this is a sisterhood. This is a community. This is like Monique's Mafia. And then the other ones all went, that's it. That's what we need to call it. Like I had very little to do with that.
Hey, everybody loves alliteration, right? It's definitely unique though, and something that's memorable, and everybody loves to feel connected to each other in some way. And because you've written your book and established this and done your speaking engagements, you can be the facilitator of that now. So that's something to be inspired by. Everybody listening right now who can write their own books, look at Monique. She has So kind of branching off that, I wondered, would you like to share a little bit to us about the speaking engagements now? I mean, was that before or after the publication of your book?
Well, I always spoke, before I started my business, which was On Demand CMO, is 26 years old. So it's not, new to the street, as it were. And so, but before that, I was publisher of Brand Week magazine, which is it was a highly regarded marketing magazine. So I was asked to speak, but, more often than not. So speaking itself was never an issue. And I used to talk about work-life balance back in those days. I prefer to call it integration now. But, I would invite it as a female leader to different things. Now the context and content is slightly different, but my love of, being part of a Women's History Month or a Women in Leadership or an ESG program or a conference where women are getting together to learn about entrepreneurship, leadership, being authentic. And I hate the word authentic right now because it's overused, but the idea of really leading in your own way and giving yourself grace to do it and space to do it. You have to show up the best version of yourself. Well, if the stuff that's happening at home is not right, or the stuff that's happening in your other part of your life isn't clicking, you're not going to show up as your best leader. So this is what I focus on. And so now the clients that I have that are marketing clients, that are entrepreneurial women that are building businesses, I have a little bit of coaching and a little bit of marketing and a little bit of business, right? I'm an MBA. I started my own business. I know what it's like. I understand business and marketing and coaching. So I will be any one of those 3 things for that person, whatever they need at the time that they need it in order for them to get unstuck. And so I think that's been my secret sauce and happy place.
Yeah, it's great that you can have such a range of things to offer people. I mean, that's one reason why your audience has such a widespread reach as well. I'm wondering, do you have any tips to offer anyone listening right now? Like, how do you expand yourself so that you're able to approach things in so many different regards?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something it might be counterintuitive, but it's really not. And that is, be okay not being for everybody. So when I say that, when I started the business, I didn't really know who were going to be my primary clients or who was going to be I like to call it swim lane or my category or my people. I just thought I was going to be just a smart marketer and it was going to all work out. Well, that's not good enough. Any business that you're in, you cannot be for everybody. And if your messaging, your story and your narrative and your look and feel and your website or your social media looks like everybody else's, you stand for nothing. So don't bother. Be very, very, very clear who you are and who you want to attract, because the person you want to attract will come to you, and then you will find more of that type of person or business. In my case, it's mostly businesses. It's all businesses. I mean, I deal with people, but I really deal with their businesses. And I'm okay. I'm not going to do lipstick. I'm not going to do makeup. I'm not going to do diapers. I don't do consumer packaged goods. I'm clear about that. I'm not good at it. I've never been good at it. I never wanted to be good at it. I never tried it. I don't like it. What I am really good at is if you have a complicated business or a complicated product or service, I'm going to kick ass. And I'm clear about that. And I have results about that. I can point to results about that. So I know my swim lane and I know my ideal customer. And if you're looking for a marketing consultant that's going to tell you what you want to hear, I'm not your girl. So don't bother.
Well, first off, I love how you hate the word authentic you mentioned before, but it seems to me that what you're saying is you need to be authentic and being yourself
Real
by staying in that lane, right? And being exactly. Just doing what you know you're good at and passionate about, and not trying to do what you're not going to resonate with. I understand that completely. As somebody who works with all different types of books and genres, I mean, there are certain projects that I've tried to get into. I'm just like, I'm not in this space. This isn't for me. You have to pick the projects you love doing. So
exactly. And why do you do that? Because you're going to be great at it. And why are you great at it? Because you love it. And it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It doesn't matter. It works. Just don't fight it. Don't fight it. Don't try to be a zebra if you're a leopard. Just don't do it. As in French, there's an expression that says you can't make a cat out of a dog. I use it all the time.
Hey, I love it. You have a way of words, first off, all the different expressions, and definitely is captivating. I can see why you have a tribe of followers here. No, it's awesome, though. I mean, very inspiring stuff. And
you got to come with our next retreat, May 2nd, in Long Beach Island. Come on on. Okay. Come on on.
That's not too far for me. I'm Jersey here. Same side of the
Where are you? Exactly. Oh, you're in there. I didn't know that.
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I just made a mistake. LBI, is that
Long Beach Island? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So not too far off. But
wow.
I would also like to kind of, make sure that I'm covering every aspect here with your book and your programs here. So I understand, you have also on-demand CMO. I'm wondering, would you like to share a little bit about that to our audience? Anybody who's interested in, kind of taking these aspects and promoting maybe their own work or their own businesses or...
So on-demand CMO started because I was a client and I didn't like the agency model. I didn't like being force-fed into, you pay this much a month and this is what we're going to give you and take it or leave it. And that was kind of it, right? And I was like, but I don't need that, but I need more of that, but I need less of this. And what are you doing? I don't want your model. I need a different model. So I created it as we give you what you need, when you need it, how you need it, no more, no less model. And so we are not a fractional CMO, which is the usual interpretation. No, I can be your outsourced chief marketing officer. That's what CMO stands for those of you who are not in marketing. And at the same time, I can give you the entire marketing department bolted onto your organization. So if you don't have designers, you don't have webmasters, you don't have technical people, you don't have operations people, you don't have automation people, copywriters, design, all of that we bring to bear with the strategy. So we'll do the, what do you need to do to build sales? What do you need to do to build your business? My sweet spot seems to be increasing valuation for mid-market companies so that when they go to sell them, they sell for more money. That seems to be something I'm good at. So I'm focusing on that. I'm focusing on companies that have an exit strategy in X number of years and making them worth more. So what does that look like? The whole thing. What's your brand? What's your message? What's your story? How are you different? Who are you reaching out to? How do you multiply your clients? How do you increase your average order value? How do you do all that stuff? And so that's what we do in a way that is seamless to the client. And then they retain us to be their agency of record. And, we've had a couple clients for the last 8 years that have not, wanted to go anywhere else. So we love that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. I think that, even though it's not quite related to the book exactly, in a way it is when you think about it, because your businesses and people who come to you also have to kind of shape the way that they're thinking and, analyze what their own choices have been so far and kind of adapt to your, teachings and theories too. So in a way it is very similar. I'm not sure if you would instill the 7 secrets to a business per se, but I can see how, they benefit from your wisdom and guidance, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the 2 places I think that it shows up most is a voice, being very clear about who you are, who you're not, what you stand for, what's important to you, what are your values as a business, as a person too, but as a business. So what I started doing is, because I'm a why certified coach, I start with an assessment, a why assessment with the primary client contact. So I understand how they think, how they process information, what's important to them, and what their why is, so that the communication between our team and their team is seamless. And so as soon as I know how that person is wired, I know how best to contextualize what needs to happen and how they can hear it best. And so that has been a game changer for me. And the place that I like to focus on is, the voice, and then the narrative and the time. So as my coach used to say, show me your checkbook, show me your calendar, and I'll show you your priorities. It's true. So I will say to them, you're spending too much time doing X when we should be spending time doing Y, and all of this is extraneous information and extraneous activity, and we don't need to do it. And they'll be like, well, what do you mean? Well, because it's not generating an ROI. So let's just kill it.
Yeah. Hey, I love how you have that rapport then, not only with the women you help in your speaking engagements and the books, but also with their business. So I think anybody listening today who's, been inspired by Monique when she's talking about either one of these aspects, I think you're in for a treat. Whatever avenue you might be looking for, whether it's personal development or professional development, you kind of have the whole package.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, as we begin to kind of wrap up a little bit today, I'm wondering, do you have any last bits of advice to any of our aspiring authors listening today in terms of the writing process? What was challenging for you? What was easy for you? What would you recommend to anybody just getting started? A lot of questions there, but I'll let you kind of take it as it goes.
So it's interesting. There are so many thought processes and theories about how best to write a book. And there's a bunch of businesses that are like, oh, I'm going to get you a book in 30 days if you write for 5 hours in a row and you don't. Okay. I don't know. Maybe that works for people. Maybe it doesn't. I know that for me, I know that I'm going to be more productive when I'm relaxed and in my game. So when I was here, wherever I was, in Paris and also here, I would get up, when my body decided to get up, and I would immediately go write. Because I know that was when the most productive thought processes that happen in my brain happen when it just got out of like REM sleep or sleeping, or, just kind of like when I like to say, when your eyes haven't fully opened and the coffee hasn't quite hit the main line. So I used to go down in my pajamas and start to write for as long as I could until I just had nothing to say. And the other thing I did get as advice, which I do believe, is do not go back and edit your work. as you go. Do not. Word vomit until you're complete and leave it be. And word vomit some more the next day, and word vomit some more the next day, and keep doing that until you've pretty much done it for about a month. And then you can go back and see what you did. And then what happened for me is I started seeing themes, because originally it was all word vomit, right? All stuff that blah, blah. I'm like, wait, what if I organized this way? And what if I interviewed women about that theme? Oh, what an idea. Wow, what if I added exercises to that theme? Great. So these things become processes. And if you have an organization like yours, or a publisher or a consultant or someone that helps you, or an editor that helps you modify or package or smooth out the rough edges, you're going to get there. But your word vomit is your story, and you have to take the time to do it when you're freshest. Because let's face it, if you try to do it after work, after you put the kids to bed, after you cleaned up dinner and the dishes in the sink and everything else, you're not going to be very creative. And it's going to be so far away from your actual core messages, you're not going to recognize yourself. So that's my advice.
Yeah, well, first off, I can see, how you've emphasized in the beginning of this podcast, and now also just getting your ideas out there, right? Letting them flow, like we mentioned before, like you did in Paris, just putting all those thoughts out on paper. I understand that. I mean, that's one of the most famous writing quotes, Hemingway, like write, drunk, edit, sober.
I love it.
It is actually a debated quote. People say that maybe he actually didn't say it, somebody else said it, but regardless, I will attest to that. So I get that. But also, I'm playing devil's advocate. I think, maybe some people do write really well in the mornings, but also
absolutely true.
Maybe it depends on your own body too. So I always say you have to listen to your own schedule and when you do focus most.
That's a good point. And I'll take that back. So if you are your best creative self after the kids go to bed, after 2 glasses of wine, after you've cleaned up the dishes, and it's 2:00 in the morning, God bless you.
Yeah. Hey, you've got to do what works for you. I mean, at the end of the day, getting it on paper is what matters. Not to say I am a morning person, believe me. I actually try to get myself up at like 6 a.m. when I can and get my work done. And there's also days, though, you want to stay in bed a little longer. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that, you got to listen. The older I get, the more I listen to the circadian rhythms, and really, I try not to set an alarm for myself so that I know when my body's ready to be up, it's up. You don't hit the snooze button and you don't roll over. That's the thing that kills people. But you will naturally get out of bed at the right time for your rest if you allow to listen to your body. So I just think sometimes just being more intentional and mindful of what your body's trying to tell you, rather than try to override it with reason, is really helpful.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so you just got to listen to yourself. And I guess it kind of goes back to what you were saying about kind of staying in your lane, right? Like being true to your own self and your own needs, and not just what inspires you, but what works best for you too. So exactly. I like that your advice all kind of connects together, whatever topic it is that we're talking about. It's great. So yeah, I mean, Monique, I'm wondering, you've mentioned you have the retreats, you have speaking engagements, you have a podcast as well. I'm curious to know what else might be on the horizon. What could our listeners today look forward to finding out more about you? I know they can reach out to you via your website, but this is your chance to kind of let us know how we can get in touch with you and what's happening. What's happening.
So get in touch with me via MoniqueDeMaio.com. You just fill out a let's stay in touch and you send me a message. It's DEMAIO. The podcast is Possibilities. I'm all about possibilities. So I like to think of things as like, don't tell me no, tell me maybe, and they'll figure it out. Right? So if somebody gives you a no, you say, well, that's nice. Thank you for your opinion. And I'll come back to you with a possibility. So I interview all types of women on the podcast. And I think what I have in my long-term planning is I want to do some workshops that combine the leadership coaching with the lifestyle or life coaching, if you will. I hate that term also because it's overused, because everybody's a life coach. Even people who don't have their life together are life coaches. I'm like, I would never take life advice from you because you can't find your way out of the parking lot, but okay, you're a life coach. Like, so for me, that's whatever. So the ideas of we're going to start doing workshops for people who are like launching businesses or trying to grow their businesses. And then eventually I also want to start doing retreats in foreign countries where I speak the language. So look out for that.
Combining your love for travel with that as well. Love it. And also spreading your reach even more. It could only help even more people.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Great. Yeah. So we'll put the links in the description of this podcast as soon as it's released. So if everybody listening today can click right on that and check it out.
Yay.
So yeah, I mean, again, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I think we have a lot of amazing insights today, and we could check out the 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love on Amazon, and also, through the website, you could find it as well. And other than that, everybody, it's, this is Monique, and we've learned a ton, and thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle.
All right. And to everybody else, again, just as a little bit of a wrap up here, just remember that you too can transform your micro moments into micro outcomes. You can find the book on Amazon, like I mentioned. And, we believe here in Authors on Mission that every expert does have a story that can change lives. So, if you're inspired today by what Monique said, you can also write your own book. You can check us out at authorsonmission.com as well. We're here to help you along every step of the way. So until our next episode, please keep writing, keep leading, and keep making an impact. That's all for now. And Monique, thanks again.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.